Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to our yearly webinar where we will present the results of Neretva Biodiversity, specifically what we discovered during 2 Science Weeks in 2002 and 2022 and 2023. And as I said, you can ask questions in chat or in question and answer field, and we will try to answer them during the presentations or after each of presentations. Let me first start with who we are. My name is Spela, and currently I am the coordinator of Scientists for Balkan Rivers Network, which is an initiative with around 250 members. It's basically our main event, of course, or main, let's say, event of the year is Science Week, of course, but we also have other activities such as regular online meetups, webinars, as is this one, and also it is kind of a network where everyone can share ideas or ask questions or open some issues. And in this first part, I would first like to invite our lead scientist, Gabriel Zinger, to present basically why scientists gather in something like Scientists for Balkan Rivers network. So, Gabriel, I think you have remote control, and please,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Spela. This is actually a much too nice picture of me. I'm supposed to tell you a bit about, say, our self-understanding of scientists and why we're doing this and what's the kind of recipe behind it in a very general way. This is not how my job, in fact, looks like, but it's a nice picture of the lead scientists of these Neretva Science Weeks. My real job looks a bit more like this. Not sure if this works now. I'm a scientist now, and supposedly this works much too fast, generating knowledge now. Very often generating that knowledge means trying to sell it. And I tried to sell it to peers, which is like a bit of a game of Monopoly. And in many cases, it doesn't work because my peers decide to not cite my papers. So who's got control over this now, Spela? Can I take control over the slideshow or not? Now I have it again. This idea of providing knowledge for working out that nicely now. I'm a river ecologist. I like to work and generate knowledge in places like this. And then what happens sometimes is that I see facts like this. This is a map of Balkan countries with hydropower projects. And this map has been a bit of a wake-up call for me personally. And maybe it's best compared to the planet's temperature curve for a climatologist. It basically means that the systems I like to work in are disappearing. They're running through my fingers like sand. And there's actually not much point in studying natural rivers anymore because they're just disappearing faster than I can learn about them. So this remote control, Spela, doesn't work. I always need to get back to it. Maybe you take over control and just put on the next slide. Can you? No. Let me take it again. No.
Sorry, not sure what's going on. It worked, and now actually the button to take over control disappeared.
It's fine. So let me tell you a little bit about how basically the bunch of scientists, Spela said there are about 250 people behind it, tried to take over a bit more, say, engagement, no? And I think what we are is what I call an engaged scientist, and it's a phenomenon I think that has been spreading over the last decades a little bit. And you can see this movement specifically among climatologists, and you can see it also among ecologists, because we're destroying the planet at a pace that worries us a little bit. And this engaged scientist, in fact, in my opinion, and that's also behind the Science Week idea, knows 3 cornerstones of what defines us, basically. And the bottom cornerstone is science. So this is what we have learned and what we can do best. In the end, the meaning of science is publishing, providing knowledge, as I said before. On a Science Week, however, we also very consciously network. Now, that's something we have learned quite a bit over the last years too, because a lot of science is teamwork. But here, teamwork is a bit more important because it's also about networking with colleagues from probably disprivileged countries to really build capacity. So this is a very important cornerstone. And I'm using as a backdrop, as a picture here, basically, an aerial photograph of the Neretva and the river Ljuta, which is a tributary here. Now, these 2 things come together. And the last cornerstone of what defines the engaged scientist here, in my opinion, is outreach. Sometimes our universities, our institutions force us a little bit to talk to non-scientists. Here, in this case, this is a very important part of our activity. It's about reaching the public. It's about influencing political decisions. And maybe I can summarize this. So you can do the next slide, unless I can do it. I could summarize this with, we publish on the one hand. No, this doesn't work, no? No, the remote control doesn't work, guys. Yes,
Gabriel, you are doing, sorry,
so
you are doing it. So
yeah.
it just lagged, but I will disable your this and I will do it. So just hint and I will do it instead of you.
Okay, so then I give you a hint on when the next slide is due. So the science bit is what we can do best, as I said. This is about publishing the knowledge that we generate. And it's about also making sure that we have a good reputation as a scientist, basically, taking care of our CVs, taking care of our students. The networking component may be summarized as we have a party and we get to know each other. That's maybe actually a fun aspect. The last bit, the outreach, that's maybe where some of us are challenged because it's about exposing ourselves to journalists, to people that actually take videos of us and put it on the web. And some of us feel a bit uncomfortable in doing this, no? Okay, next slide, please. So the scientific aims of the Neretva Science Week, or these 2 Science Weeks, can actually be summarized quite efficiently with 2 things. We want to collect data on what's there. So what in fact is at risk in this place? And that's a picture of the river we talk about. So we're interested in what are the animals, what are the biodiversity, what are the plants that define the system, and why would it potentially be special in any way? And second, can we make predictions about what would potentially be lost in that place? So this is about assessing impacts. So somebody decides to dam that valley, what would be potentially lost? Basically, with these 2 scientific aims, these 2 objectives, we have sent our colleagues, out into the field in places like this to find out about basically what's there and what are the potential impacts. Can we have the next slide? This is us, and this is a group picture from the first Science Week on a bridge over the Neretva in a small town called Ulok. So who is us? Those scientists for Balkan rivers are a subsample of the people that you see here that participated in the Science Week are a subsample of these 250 people that Spela has mentioned. Many of us work at research institutions, at natural history museums, at universities. Many of us bring students that help to collect data. All of us work for free unless our institutions allow us to basically go there. So we're not paid by anyone to collect this data. Next slide, please. This is the field camp atmosphere we work in. You can actually see the bridge the picture has been taken from. We put ourselves in a very adventurous field camp situation. And that's actually a very special atmosphere because it actually motivates us to work, but it also brings us together. So this is really an atmosphere that we almost deliberately create because it brings us together with other colleagues that we may not have known before. And it brings us very close to also the people that can tell the stories better than us. And that's the journalists, those are the photographers, those are the video journalists that actually take footage of us in the stream. And the atmosphere looks like this. This is how we get up in the morning. You have to get used to this. You get close to other people, but that's part of the story. Next slide. Then we work. We collect butterflies. Here's a specialist, a colleague that has just joined. I have seen collecting butterflies 7 days in a row, 24 hours a day, I suppose. We are nerd enough to, in fact, really do this. Next slide. No, next one. Yes. Very often we can identify the specimens that we collect in the field. Here are two colleagues from Slovenia that actually identify mosses. In a lot of cases, the work we do does not stop in the field, of course. We bring samples home, we work in molecular biological laboratories, and there's a lot of data analysis that we need to finish in writing up reports. The Science Week, however, consists to about 50% of non-scientists, like this guy, for instance. He's a specialist with regard to taking photographs and video footage of us working in the field and of the specimens we collect. So these are the people that can tell the stories much better than we can do it. And we try to actively engage with them. Sometimes I need to remind my colleagues to do it. Uli Eichelmann is giving a good example here, giving an interview right at the shoreline of the river and telling why we're here, while in the background, me and a colleague sample environmental DNA for fish in this case. At the end of the day, next slide, we use the opportunity to network, unless we do it for the whole day in a relatively simple atmosphere. We get dinner and we talk to our colleagues, and we have a good chance to do this for a week, right? You can see that this special field camp atmosphere that we create here actually engages, catalyzes this transfer of knowledge, in our opinion, very efficiently. So with this, I'm actually at the end of my introduction of what defines us as scientists, and I'm passing on the word to Spela. Spela has been a participant in the first Neretva Science Week, and she has, as she said, been coordinating the Scientists for Balkan Rivers Network for the last year. And she will tell us quite a bit about the results of the last 2 years.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I see that there is few seconds lag between when I change the slide and when it appears on your screens. So just pretend that you see slides 2 seconds earlier than you do. So I will talk about the results, what you are all here to hear. And it was actually hard for me to summarize all the results and to make them entertaining enough, as I'm sure that long spreadsheets is the last thing you want to see, or complex graphs and charts that you will anyway, would need a lot of time to understand. So hopefully you will enjoy this, let's say, collage of photos, and I will be able to present you at least part of the results that we gathered in 2 years. First, let's talk about the participants. If the first Science Week in 22 was a little bit smaller, the second one actually exploded. But the interesting thing was that number of scientists was roughly similar between years. It was the number of all other participants, especially journalists, photographers, and artists, lawyers, activists that joined us that have risen in the second year. And we were from quite various countries all over the world actually, not just from Europe. And we studied various groups, various taxonomic groups, and also various aspects of biodiversity. This slide aims to capture at least some of the diversity of scientists that were present. They studied everything from different macroinvertebrates to vertebrates, from wolf to snakes to bats, caves. They even studied scientists. And as Gabriel already told you, we were exploring Neretva. But as you can see, Neretva is not a small river. And if first year in 22, we focused only on the Upper Neretva itself, in the second year, we expanded our area of research to also to other areas, to tributaries and to the slopes around Neretva itself. So we were again sampling the same parts of Upper Neretva, the amazing alluvial forests that all of you that were there know are something spectacular and something that we can see anywhere else, basically in other parts of Europe. And we also went to a challenging, let's say, adventure to do a transect from one plateau through the valley and up to another plateau on the other side, which is not trivial even if the roads wouldn't be completely destroyed due to heavy rain events before and also on the Science Week 23. So it was quite an interesting experience for all of us, I can say. I already mentioned Luta. There were also some other hidden tributaries that are basically not even mapped. And no biologist ever got lost in that part of the world. So we used also some rope technique and some other advanced methods to reach all these inaccessible canyons. And as you could see from the map, we also explored what it seems to be a completely different river. This is Zalonka on Nevesinsko polje. This is actually a karstic river that would deserve a science week on its own, but we were there just for 1.5 days to at least scratch the surface of what lives there and how biodiverse this area is. And you know, people always ask at the end, what's the summary? What are the main results? And I can tell you that we still don't know what is the final number of species that we discovered there. But I can tell you that there are more than 2,000 species that were recorded in just 2 weeks, 1 week in 22 and another week in 23. And if we check with animals, more than 50 species of animals are strictly protected by national laws, and more than 40 are on various European directives like Birds Directive or Habitats Directive. The same goes for plants. More than 30 species of plants are strictly protected. Around 30 habitats are present on Habitat Directive. More than 60 rare or endangered species were found. More than 25 endemic species of plants were found. So all these numbers already show you that what lives in Neretva is quite, let's say, unique. Moreover, 9 species new to science were discovered, which is not something that happens every day. And at least one of them already got new name. All these findings were presented first in a preliminary report that was issued for each year. And preliminary report is aimed to address general public. So first results that are not final yet, with some nice photos and accompanied with a general story about the event. And I'm sure that probably Ivana already shared the links, otherwise she will do it in a few minutes. You can reach all these preliminary reports online and read everything that we did on Science Week. Second, a little bit tougher project was a special issue of Natura Slovenia journal, where we published actual scientific papers, which are completely boring for non-scientists, but are a way how to actually present scientific knowledge to the world. And this special issue came out at the end of last year. It consists of 13 papers, and they were contributed by more than 60 authors, which already can tell you at least a bit how much effort it was put into compiling all these results. And I'm really grateful that all these scientists took time to actually write a paper, because it's nice to be on a science week, but it is completely different story to gather the data together, analyze them, and write something out of it. And the diversity of papers is reflecting the diversity of area, I can say. For example, from following wolf poo all around the Neretva to aquatic insects to terrestrial and aquatic beetles, in all the groups, you can see, well, scientists saw and want to tell you this, that the abundance of creatures and diversity of creatures was really something we do not see in, I don't know, Austria or Germany. And I hope that our photographers did a good enough job to capture all the beauty that we studied there. So, as I mentioned, different groups, not just aquatic ones, also terrestrial and also subterranean, for example, were studied, and lists of species together with some new insights are presented in papers in Natura Slovenia. Let's say second part of papers were actually several ecological studies that resulted in important new insights into the functioning of pristine river. For example, scientists studied gradients of various aspects of diversity. So how this diversity changes through the area, not just how species changes, but how diverse they are, for example, in their forms and their functions. They also studied greenhouse gas emissions of free-flowing river, because even if may not be seen at first glance, it's hard to find free-flowing river around us. So this is really valuable natural laboratory. They also studied, for example, nutrient inputs, how they influence the ecosystems, and all these ecological studies showed that Upper Neretva is not some uniform continuum, but a dynamic river that changes, interacts, and communicates with surrounding environment. As I mentioned, one of the new species was already described, and this is a species of Diptera. And also some other papers were published in various other scientific journals. So the word about Neretva biodiversity spreads. And what were our, let's say, common conclusions about Neretva? We definitely can say that Neretva is highly biodiverse, pristine, and unique river, but we also realized, even despite all our efforts, it's still threatened. And even I need to show this photo. This is the Ulog Dam, and even though we might not stop this one, we hope our results will help prevent further damage upstream in Neretva and also in all the other tributaries. So let's go now to what was new in 2023. Part of the results were already published in a preliminary report, and part of the results are completely fresh. Again, some same groups were studied as previous year, and some new groups of animals and also plants and mosses, for example, were added this year. So we expanded our, let's say, knowledge of the area. One interesting group was dendrochronological group, and they studied basically the structure and age of forests around Neretva. And the most interesting result is that they confirmed that some trees in the area are more than 250 years old. So we actually can speak about old growth forests, not in all of the area, but some patches. And also the diversity of the forest in this area was quite, let's say, high. So it shows that not just the Upper Neretva, but also surrounding valley is in good state for now, although the logging is present and can present a serious threat to the area. And well, sadly, I have to mention also this, that some of the trees cut for Ulog Dam were, for example, older than 200 years. So basically, we lose something that took ages to grow up in a matter of minutes. Well, for what cost? Another interesting group were bryophytes, which basically I can translate for you into mosses. Around 150 species were discovered, which were not studied last year, so in 2022, and 7 of them were never found in Bosnia and Herzegovina before. Fungi, another interesting group with more than 100 species and with several rare and new species for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And on the photo, you can see nice macroscopic photos of one species that is most probably new to science and hopefully will be described in next years. Also, grasshoppers were studied this year. Laszlo and Slobodan did quite a big job trying to catch all of the expected 70 species, and they caught 60 out of 70, which is quite a success. And many of them were endemic or on some kind of protection status. And one of these, lady on the photo, is actually, again, new species for science. Another maybe obscure group of invertebrates that were studied were spiders. A little over 80 species, and over 60% of them were never found in Bosnia and Herzegovina before. So this is completely new data for this species, which just shows that the area is really understudied and demands more biological research. And of course, our famous fish group and our famous fish scientists with most awesome photos from the field trip. So they were this year, they actually didn't catch fish, but they were trying to sample mostly they were trying to sample the water. Specifically, they were taking environmental DNA samples, which means that you filter out a lot of water and try to get DNA out of it. And they confirmed the softmouth trout in Ljuta. This is, again, one of my favorite photos of confluence of Ljuta and Neretva, and then confirmed presence of softmouth in both of the rivers. So I cannot go through all of the groups because I will run out of time, but I can tell you that, for example, more than 100 of birds were found, of which 60 were not seen a year before. The same goes for butterflies, almost 300 butterflies and moth species, and around 40 of them were found on, let's say, on new. Plants were basically one of the groups that did the most field work, I would say, running around all over and contributed a massive portion of this 2,000 species list that I mentioned at the beginning. On the other hand, in subterranean environment, we don't have so many species, but each of them counts because they're really elusive and rare findings. The same may go for reptiles and amphibians. Even though we do not speak about hundreds of species, every, let's say, occurrence counts. Also because these species are actually, let's say, more legally protected or more visible than many invertebrate species. And at the end, I have to mention a group of social scientists who didn't study animals, but studied us. And they actually interviewed the locals and the scientists to get the insight into the relation of inhabitants with the river and also into the motives that drive us scientists to explore this part of the world and to write the papers, you know, after the event. And as Gabriel already mentioned, we had to work with journalists, even though sometimes you think this is, well, just something that prevents you to do the most efficient sampling, but it's not. It's really important work. Because without journalists and photographers, nobody will know what we do, because nobody will read our scientific papers instead of other scientists. And I think that we did pretty good job because we were all over the local national news, but also in some international journals, which are, let's say, quite famous. So I think that we put a spotlight very efficiently on Neretva, and now, well, we will see what will happen in next years and decades. And with this, I think I need to check for all your questions. So I would now give word to Uli, and oh, well, I think I will give word to Uli and go through all of the questions, and maybe I can answer them later. So Uli, please.
Yeah, thank you. Hi. Oh, yeah. Yeah, hey everyone. Happy to have you here, and happy to finally talk about the Neretva. You know, just briefly from my perspective, I see the Neretva in the context of the Balkan rivers, which in itself we call it the blue heart of Europe. But even within this blue heart of Europe, the Neretva is extraordinary special. I don't think there is a lot of rivers that are as diverse as the Neretva in terms of habitats, of ecosystems, because despite the fact that you have canyons, you have alluvial forests, you have slopes, you have gravel islands, a lot of little waterfalls and springs. You have also karstic river systems, and they're so-called polyus. Spela showed you like the Nevesinsko polje with the Zalomka River. That is absolutely unique. This polye ecosystem exists globally only in the Balkans, and the vast majority is in Bosnia. We've chosen the Neretva not only because it's so beautiful and diverse, we've chosen it because it's one of the most threatened rivers in the world, or in Europe at least. There's about, it's how many are you counted, but way above 50 hydropower projects in the pipelines, and some big ones like Ulok, or further downstream towards Mostar, the Upper Horizons project, they're under construction with Chinese help. That gives you a little bit the idea of what we are fighting. And the whole Science Week, the work of scientists that Gabriel and Spela were describing to you, are a very crucial stone in this fight, because we assess data, we create visibility, but we assess the data also as arguments for NGOs that work in the country together with us against these hydropower projects, and for lawyers that can use this data in the court or in the administrative processes. And so far, I must say, with the help with organizations like the Center for Environmental Act from Sarajevo, and AHO Center in Sarajevo, we won a lot of cases. The Liuta, for example, that you saw on the mouth with the sock mouth trout, there is 8 hydropower projects planned. And I'm 100% convinced they will not build any of them. Neretva River, it's a little bit downstream, 15 dams were planned, none of them will be built. The concessions have been deleted, so on and on. So I think we probably won't save the whole ecosystem, the whole river, but we will be, with the help of these data and the visibility, our larger parts of this river, and it will not become a river of normal European standards, with little stretches between devastated sections. So that's a little bit my introduction here to give you again a frame, the context. So for what's next, that's a little bit what I would like to talk about it. The Science Week became like the prime product of the rivers scientists for Balkan rivers. I have the same here again. Spiller, maybe you have to. It doesn't. I know. Yeah, we will have another 2 or maybe more science weeks in this year. So we received so many requests. Can you do the science week in our area? Because there's a lot of rivers on the Balkans that are highly valuable and intensely threatened at the same time. That's the context we work in, we need. And there is one in the upcoming year now, and that's the Vjosa Delta. And the Science Week will be from April 22 to April 27 this year. The Vjosa Delta we've done a study that's not published yet of all the mouths of rivers and river deltas of the whole Mediterranean. So including Africa and all the rest around. And the Vjosa is one of the very few deltas that are still largely intact. And we will have this this Science Week right here in the middle. I hope I can steer that. Yeah, so that's what it looks like a little bit. It's full of golden shekel, if I may say. They're running around there everywhere. But it's a lot. It's also, you think you know the delta, but there's a lot of data missing, and that we want to collect in late April. Late April is a perfect period for this because it's really in the south of Albania, close to Greece already. So even in May, it could be, or middle May, end of May, it's really hot. So I think it's perfect period. It will be done by the scientist host from Albania. The NGO partner there is Eco Albania. We are fighting with them together for many years to protect the river. And we established the national park a year ago. Spiller, maybe you can take over again because this doesn't really work. Can you do that? So here is on the side what you see. It's the delta, and the green lines is the national park. So originally we want, and we need to do that, and that's also the purpose of this whole Science Week. We want the whole delta to be included in the national park, as you see now on the right side. That was the plan a year ago, and then the government said, no, let's start with the Vjosa and a tiny part of the delta, and we will add that at a later stage. We're not so sure that they want it. It doesn't look like. In fact, hey, stop. Can we go back? That was too fast. You see here, I don't know if you see the cursor, but you see the airport that is under construction. This runway, they're working on the runway. And we want, with this event in April, we want to highlight the need to add it to the national park. We need the delta. That, and only then the national park with the Vjosa, the whole river system would be complete, including the Narta Lagoon that you see in the south. Next one, please. Yeah, and there's even much more to come if we don't include that into the national park. This is they call it master plan. And they want not only the airport, of course, but they want to urbanize the whole delta. They want to have a marina here on the left side, and they want to have resorts. They have wine tourism. They want to produce wine. These are visions, but it shows which direction it would go if we don't get involved. Same here, the airport in the front, and then urbanize the whole, do the Manhattan thing, have these roads everywhere, and then houses, access roads. That would be really the end of the delta. We have more than enough examples of similar situations in the Mediterranean, almost every delta in the Mediterranean. The Ebro Delta, whatever, is completely destroyed. And in some regions in Spain, you would not even recognize that it was a delta because the river is hidden. This is, again, another example what the Albanian government is really aiming for. So you see the white patches, and that's what they want to develop. And their idea is to have the national park, but have enormous tourism around. So that doesn't work. So that's why we're doing that in the April. We want to assess data, but to make it visible and raise our voices there. Raise the voice is really an important thing. Next one, please. I'm going from the bottom to the more top. This is also part of the Vjosa system. This is the Sarandaporos River. That's in Greece, not far away from the Albanian border. And there we are doing the, there is a mistake here, but I can tell you. So there is another Science Weeks in June, and it is from June 28 to July 5. So forget that here, I did a mistake, I think. From June 28 to July 5, we will have a Science Week in Greece at the Sarandaporos. Next one, please. So this is a little drone photo. In the blue color, you see the Aos, where the trees are on the right bank of the river. That's still Greece, and then the moment it comes to Albania, that's the border. But the muddy one, it's a lot of flush. It's the Sarandaporos. Next one. And this is it's a Google map. You see the line here again, the green line on the left side. That is the Vjosa River, and it's a national park. That's where the national park starts, and the Aos goes right down here. But here, this whitish line is the Sarandaporos, and our base camp, like the Ulok of the Sarandaporos, is Kefalahori. That's up there. From there, we will do the needed assessments. And we're doing that because the Sarandaporos is highly under threat to be dammed as well. And the whole Greek part, including Aos, Voidomatis, for those who know the region, and especially Sarandaporos, and in their tributaries, are threatened to be dammed. I mean, there's more than 40 hydropower projects in the pipeline, but the most threatened one right now is the Sarandaporos. That cannot happen. That cannot happen, because if they would dam the Sarandaporos, it would have a huge impact on the national park in the Vjosa, because all the gravel that you see here from Sarandaporos is going down to the river. All the nutritions, everything is connected, and the river doesn't know that there is a border. So the goal is, and the message that has to come from this Science Week is, stop the dams and create and add it to the Wild River National Park instead. The goal is to have a binational or bilateral Wild River National Park with about 700 kilometers of rivers and streams highly protected and well managed. That's the vision, that's the goal. I think we get there. So this is all parts of the photos that you see here. That's part of the area that we need to assess in late July and late June and early July. Next one, please. Yeah, that's the town where our base camp will be. It will be again mixed from the campsite, and usually like in Ulok, it was 7 in the morning breakfast and 7 in the evening dinner, and in between some, we had lunch packages, but in between was work and fun. And I can say that it was the last years, it was always the best week of the year for the profession was the Science Week. And it's organized by our partner NGO, it's Medina. They're preparing all that. Next one, please. These are the big 2 Science Weeks that will happen for sure. And there is a chance of another one. Because we get so many requests, as I said earlier, and it's sometimes difficult to say no, although we have to. This is in Kosovo. It is inside the national park, Shar Mountain National Park. And believe it or not, they build dams in the core zone of the national park. Although it's completely against the law, you see this little Tyrolean wire where they even divert little streams. And the goal is to go there and assess data. And our goal is to remove those dams that have just recently built a few years ago. Most of these, and that this is a shame that this is happening, because a national park is a national park, You can they build dams anywhere, but the national park at least have to be safe. But this is unclear because of the workload, and it mainly depends on the time availability of the scientists. This is just an option. We will see. It might be in September. Last not least, we will not be able to do Science Weeks everywhere where they would be needed to collect data. We often get the request, and in some places, I think we need dedicated scientists or even students that want to do a master thesis or whatever in different areas of the Balkans that assess data that will help us and our lawyers. We have 9 lawyers in the Blue Heart campaign that would work with that data towards a better protection and preventing the hydropower projects. So I think we will also work on this to create packages and offer these packages of needed assessments through the Scientists for Balkan Rivers network. Next one, if there is one. Right, and now one more for let me say the last words to the Science Weeks approach. I think some of you would love to join, because I love to join. We are looking not for masses of people, because we get a lot of applications. We are looking for scientists that are able to lead a scientific group. If you're, I don't know, macrozoobentos expert, you should be able to lead a little group. We have always defining captains, if you want, or leaders of a group that work fairly independently according to a structure that we prepared beforehand. So if you want, you can apply, and the email list is, I guess, in the chat, or will be there. And we will let you know whether that's possible or not. So, Spela, back to you, because
Yes.
one thing for students especially.
Yes, so maybe I can tell. Nadia was supposed to tell you something about the students camp, but I see that now, well, we have technical issues. So sorry, Nadia, I will just take over from you. So the students, what happens? Uli, you do this.
I don't do anything.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Wait. Okay, I will go back. Student for Rivers Camp will happen, I think, in September. on Neretva, so where we were in previous years. And well, you can follow their work, and also the everything about applications and everything will be published on River Collective website and also on WhatsApp. And I think that Ivana already copied their contacts in chat. If not, I will copy them. So yeah, basically all the interested students, sorry, some of you already wrote to me, we are quite space limited on the Science Weeks, and we really need scientists who would lead the group. So this is what we lack right now, especially for specific taxonomic groups. And yes, some space is for students, but it's quite limited. So there is also another event on Neretva where we want to continue the story. And Uli, if I may add, maybe before the final slides, we can actually open the discussion, because there were some questions already in questions and answers, and one specifically was from Maya. She asks, what do you suggest for defending rivers that are not examined by scientists and that have no science weeks organized? And Gabriel already wrote, this is a really good question. So maybe we can open a discussion now, Gabriel, Uli, and I will just go out from the presentation and we will go back again when we have the final words.
Yeah.
I think Pippa Gallup already answered a little bit on this, and I share her opinion. I think, at least this is how I understand us scientists, we're taking over a very specific niche in this fight against river destruction. And of course, our effort can only be limited. There's only so many scientists that are ready to do this, and there's only so much money and so much effort we can spend on it. And we try to basically identify a sweet spot, like a river where this makes most sense. And other rivers may need other tools. So there may be a place where occupying a construction site or organizing a protest kind of a place where the Science Week would contribute to protecting it in a relatively efficient way, right? Yeah. Maybe this was not exactly an answer to your question, however, because you were answering, or your question was, how do we protect those places? Today we were talking about Science Weeks. I think there's still ways to get scientists engaged for other rivers in a way. A lot of us would be ready to spend a word, be an interview partner, even for other places. I can tell you that I, as an expert, you bring me to a river, I'm happy to tell roughly my opinion, right? And how valuable it would be for protection. And for most Balkan rivers, that's fairly easy to do because they are special at the scale of the whole of Europe. So even without bringing 60 people there to actually work and collect specimens, we may be able to support the protection of the river without actually being there.
May I add something here to that question? Because that is my daily bread. That question comes around via email, by call every day, because, you know, for example, in 2 days from now, I'm in Upper Austria, where they're facing people next to the national park, another dam project. So my question to that is always a little bit on base what Gabriel always said. You know, it is not so much about knowledge in the first phase. In rivers where we have a good knowledge, they face the same threat. In Austria, for example, it is much about creating visibility. You have to put this in front of this, into the spotlight. That people know about it. That people know about what is at risk, what is at stake, and whatnot. And then another thing is, beside that, I think lawyers, legal experts are absolutely crucial and underestimated in their impact. In the moment you have a legal expert on your side included in your Bürgerinitiative, in your movement, that tells a lot also to the investor side that you're seriously thinking about it. And it sounds sometimes it's, oh, wow, we don't have these funds, you know, they're super expensive, but not necessarily, not necessarily. My experience is you can find them. In Austria, we have the Öko-Büro, where they offer legal support, for example. That's another one. And the last not least, and that's lacking the most, it's, I don't know the word, but determination, is that a word? Or passion? I do see a lot of opposition against nature destruction, half-hearted. You know, they say, okay, this is bad coming, but and then let's sign a petition. Petition is not threatening anyone. The Balkan rivers are also protected, like we talked about these issues, and like Neretva and others, because people were determined to protect the river, and they protected it because they blocked the construction site. And that is a currency. That is over all the 100 years that have gone by. Whenever people go on the street or being physically doing something, creating visibility and show the determination. So if you ask me how to protect your river, your forest, your bog, whatever, you know, think about visibility, but also think about whether you're really ready to fight for that. If you're ready to fight for that, you will win this. There's a chance is super high. It's super high. Most of the cases I can recall were won because of a mix, but the most successful rate was when people were physically blocking something or being on the street.
So maybe I can just add that if someone wants to talk, I can allow you to talk. Just give me a hint, like raise your hand or write me a message. And I see that many messages came only to hosts. So Nadia already did. And Anna, please copy your message. You have to change the setting to send the message to everyone. This was my part.
Hey, there's another question. I think it's not bad from Vedran.
Yes.
You know, are there any specific strategies to mainstream results of science weeks into policies? Is there something that donors could do better to support absorption of the results into policies? That's one of the difficult things to do, you know, that especially in these, or sometimes in these governments and in the political arena in the Balkans, but that would be equally difficult in other parts, I think, to just present that to them. We are trying, and Gabriel and Spela were doing this last year. They did a tour with the results along the municipalities of the Neretva to explain the results to the local authorities and the municipalities to create first steps of understanding. But in general, our access to real decision makers on the Balkans is very difficult in a direct contact. So far they mostly reacted on public pressure. So when they saw, for example, that more and more people are talking about mini hydroelektrane in Bosnia, then, you know, there were game-changing laws even, you know. Bosnia, the Federation of Bosnia is the first country that I know of that has changed the law so that no small hydropower plants up to 10 megawatt installed capacity are legally able to, will not get the permission anymore. They're legally forbidden. And that was the result of all the ingredients. But it was not the result of a friendly talk with the politicians and say, let's discuss the best option. That's unfortunately was not the case. So that the link, the bridge between the knowledge into the politics arena is, I have no good answer to that, how to do it.
So maybe I can also read another question that's, to me, it's interesting. This was from Friedrich, who wrote that these were impressive results, but how do you know if you wouldn't get similar results if you did the same research for other rivers in Bosnia and Herzegovina? And I can say, as I'm a subterranean biologist by profession, that no caves are identical, not two of them, and especially in the Dinarids in our area, so in the Balkans, the diversity is so high that even if you go to really close by river, you will get different species, different functioning ecosystem. And even if you get the same species, this is confirmation that these species live there. So it's not about the same results. It's not about the same species, same spreadsheets, same, I don't know, levels of whatever in the water. It's about confirmation that this specific river in target is biodiversity rich, and you can only do this with going there, with exploration. You cannot say, yeah, Neretva is rich, probably is also some other river, because nobody will buy this, you know. You cannot sell results without actually having them. I don't know if some of you have something to say on it, but otherwise, I have to say that, Nadia wrote down everything about students for river camps, and Yasminka is asking if we have considered using the forthcoming EU elections to put the endangered rivers in the spotlight. Uli, have you considered becoming a politician? No, I'm joking, but
No, we are not precisely. To answer the question, that would be no, up to now. But we are regularly working toward, you're using the EU accession process to highlight the issues of nature conservation, especially of the rivers and the dams. I think in every year in the motion papers, so that's the accession report of the parliament, the dams were criticized in all the 6 Balkan, or the Western Balkan 6 countries. Unfortunately, I also think that the accession process, like it is in Albania, like it is in Montenegro or in Serbia, where the chapters are open, we could do more, but there is kind of overloading work. And there was also another question, I think Jelena was the one saying, she just wants to raise the voice that in Bosnia-Herzegovina it's an epidemic of mines. And that's also true for Serbia, for example. This mining stuff is coming, and logging is another one. And that's to tell the truth, the Western Balkans are not only beautiful, but they're trying to destroy them on a fast track. And it's not only the dams that are coming, and that we actually prevented a lot of dams. I did just a little bit of assessment, and in the last 2-3 years, we hundreds of dams we've stopped. But they're moving now. Is forest getting more into focus, and mining is also something. So it requires a national movement. But from my perspective, we are focusing on the Blue Heart campaign. We have to focus on the rivers. That might include the forest, because when you have no forest, it impacts the rivers and the mines as well. But it's difficult to work on all these issues. Then you get no success. That's my perspective. But I would love to see a Balkan-wide movement where the forest is one issue, or the mining.
okay, so Vlado, you raised hand. You want to say something? You need to unmute yourself, and you have a word.
No, maybe that's just a mistake, probably, or something. Sorry.
Okay, then I will mute you again. Okay, no problem. And Anna wrote a lot in chat, and also in question and answer section, about the various EU strategies, and also nature restoration law approved just a few hours ago. So maybe we can ask Anna to also join the conversation. Anna, I allowed you to talk, so maybe you can just present briefly. Hi, Anna. Music is in the background.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, because I am in a
Wow.
public space. maybe I can write.
Yeah, it's better to write
Can
because
you-
the sound is awful.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, it will not work. So yeah, basically, Anna wrote a comment about taxation, EU alignment chapter 27. I have no idea what this is about, but there is in chat, it's a lot about this.
Chapter 27 is the environment.
I'm searching the chat. Okay, so it's way too long to to read it now, but here, check the message, please. It's a lot about the legal issues actually, and Anna apparently is quite knowledgeable, so we should save her contact. There is also a comment. Friedrich wants to emphasize that we need to make it absolutely clear that Neretva is unique and needs to remain untouched, because this helps us to argue. Well, I think that we have proven this with all the papers and preliminary reports and data available. So
And we're
even
trying, you know. It
yes.
is not an ending. The Science Week is like a kickoff. For me, it was really, a lot of people went there, especially international media, and they've never ever heard before about the Neretva, and a lot of people wouldn't know. They might know the bridge in Mostar, but nothing else. And so it is about visibility, and we will stay there. And the indicator that we do Science Weeks now in the Biosa Basin again doesn't mean we're going away. That's why we support the Students for Rivers camp in Ulok. As you know, we have to be stubborn. We need to continue, and scientific work also relies on continuation, and not go there one day and then go home. And that's why we also decided that it is good to have this Students for Rivers camp.
Okay, so I just asked, sorry, we're jumping, but Nadia is here with us about Nadia, please unmute and she can tell us.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I wanted to say that we will do hopefully this year the Students for Rivers camp in Ulog in September from the 8th till the 15th. And the topic of the camp would be breaking barriers between people and in rivers. And I would like to ask anyone who is interested, from students, from bachelor's, master's, or PhD, they can apply from April, and they should subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Instagram to stay informed. And it would be very useful to us if some of the organizations or professionals could help us with the camp with some ideas, or come in person and have some workshops, and just generally be a part of the camp. And we are specifically looking for also financial support, which is useful for any type of organization with rivers. So it would be really nice if anyone who is interested in giving us support in any type to contact us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. I see, Amar raised hands.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you for giving me the word. I don't want to be too personal, but I come from Bosnia and I have a very deep connection with the nature here. I'm a student of ecology in the University of Sarajevo, and I've wanted to do conservation like this my whole life. And I just want to thank you personally for the work you've done for my country and the nature we do not take care of enough, to all of your team and the energy and time you take. And I just want to say these things that have been said about other rivers in Bosnia and other things, I think it is the duty of my people to fight more for these policies and research possibilities in our country, because raising awareness and allowing more education to the already huge amount of nature-loving people in Bosnia is key to allowing the work that was done in Neretva to be done in the rest of the country and the rest of the peninsula in general. There is a bad reputation of a career in science and especially ecology here that I've fought my whole life to disprove. And I've seen examples of how wrong this is if you try hard enough to stand out in the field. And things like this give motivation to me and my colleagues every day. So thank you again. And I think you've done more than enough. And I think it's your duty to follow in your footsteps and to spread this action elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mar.
And there is a long, several questions from Rios, but it says the questions have been answered live.
No, they haven't been, but Rios, can you maybe write me your email and I can reply later? Or
Quick question. Have you found jellyfish in the Neretva? I don't think so, no? These sweetwater jellyfish? No. Has anyone, did anyone do tests if is Neretva drinkable around Ulok? The springs, I would say yes. I don't know below Boban's hut, but but that's yes. Since Spela has mentioned the river Liuta, what is the status of the softmouth trout? So the Liuta is it's the tributary and very difficult to access. We have evidence that there is softmouth trout in the river, and in this March, very short from now, experts from the Boku University in Vienna will go there to check if softmouth trout is spawning in the Liuta. And the camera and film team, I think Arthur is here from the Netherlands, will join them. And that will give us another arguments to prevent those dams in Liuta itself and on Neretva downstream, because there's, I think, if we allow them, they would put the whole river system of Neretva into a chain of dams. 5, has anyone analyzes microplastic in any part of the Neretva, especially in the lower part of Neretva? Did anyone do microplastic, Gabriel?
Not yet.
No.
Not that I'm aware of.
I also don't know, but this doesn't mean anything. Maybe I just didn't see the paper.
Very briefly, last one, bullhead. We discovered bullhead, the fish, in the Neretva, and to my understanding, it is a special species where the next relatives are in the River Po in Italy, which is really weird because that's not connected. Is there a chance to make mini museum in Konitz with your finding results? That's a good idea. That's probably something, a mini museum of our results in Konitz with its little city on the banks of the river, further downstream. That's maybe something for the students for Rivers Camp to think about how to, make all these results visible. We have so good photos. We have such good stories to tell. I think it's just a matter, it's a good idea.
Okay, there are several questions about planning activities in Serbia and Montenegro. So as Uli said, we cannot multiply the River Watch probably. But yeah, Uli, what would be your answer? When will the Science Week be in Montenegro or Serbia?
At place X.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of rivers that are under attack and highly valuable. In Montenegro, we have Komarnica, we have Morača river systems. They're endangered, and another candidate on the list is Drina River. The whole river system of Drina, and that's also, man, they're so much under attack. My feeling is that we are good in preventing. We are now good in preventing small-scale dams. but the big ones are coming. The big dams with the reservoirs. And they, you know, for the Drina, for example, it's the longest river of Huchen, of this Danube salmon. And if they build these 4 dams upstream the little chain of dams in the Drina and the headwaters, that all that Huchen territory would be destroyed. So that's also a candidate for next year's. But in 24, it is the rivers that I presented. Needless to say that it is also a matter of funding, because it's absolutely super that the scientists basically, they work without being paid. And not only they go there and do their time there and spend their time there, they also work afterwards, to assess what they have discovered. Imagine the macrozoo benthos. You have tens of thousands of little animals to bring home, and you have to identify them and writing the reports. And Gabriel is in the heart of it, and Spela was, and to remind them, hey, there's a deadline, write it properly, assess it. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done. Nevertheless, there is costs that need to be covered, travel costs, accommodation, all that comes around, design of papers, copies and all that. So it is not a thing that we can multiply or amplify endlessly. But I think the idea of a science week, that the way we created that so far, it started in the Vjosa Basin, and it was in the Neretva, and this year is going back into the Vjosa Basin, is a cool one. I think I love that concept of adventure, visibility, and pure science. And one thing Spela didn't show, it was we also have one evening always with bands, with live bands and music, and that's kind of the end of the show. Then.
So there are many questions, sorry, Uli, and we are already, almost 1 hour and a half. So basically, maybe I would go back to Neretva and then to more general questions. First is from Hrabren, which wrote that according to his information, by the end of March, the trial filling of the lake in Ulok will begin. So filling the accumulation. And if we have any information about this, and whether anyone has and can help with information about the possible consequences downstream, especially because it will be probably likely dry year ahead, because there is almost no snow in the mountains around, so where the streams that belong to Neretva River Basin emerges. And this is Hrabren from Konjic. So what would be consequences downstream of Ulok Dam if they started, this year? Uli,
Okay, maybe you want to say about the consequences?
Gabriel, or?
Gabriel, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. I was trying to answer on questions and answers.
Okay. All right. Then I answer. So the consequences would be very strong. I mean, it's not only the blocking of sediments, the blocking of nutrition and of the whole that makes a river, but we strongly believe that they would produce flush to produce peak electricity. So every day, or we don't know what rhythm, they would release a little flood and then close the gates again, and then they would create a little drought. And no species, or very few species, can adapt to that. And even more is needed to understand that the next plan is, if they close the gates for Ulok, they will immediately go on and try to build the next one in line. It's called Bieremici, which is close to the town of Glavaticevo. As I said, they're thinking of to drown the whole Neretva River and then divert all the water from the tributaries away from it. So that's why I think Neretva is the most threatened river in Europe, and most complexly threatened by dams. But I'm also sure we will stop all the others. No Bielemici, no Blavatic, no Konitz, no whatever. But Ulog is difficult because we are late. We are very late, and it's going on. And it seems that nobody is able to block that construction site. It's much more difficult to block those because it's huge. Same with Upper Horizons. It's difficult to get there. In October, we went there, and it was immediately security coming, chasing us away. But I'm very hopeful that we will save large parts of the Neretva system, including the upper part that we saw photos. There are 7 dams planned, but they will not touch us. So we need to come up with a vision of nature conservation, and that could be in the upper part of National Park, Upper Neretva National Park. That would be about 28,000 hectares, which is big. But also for the other river systems that are free-flowing, we need to develop something, maybe biosphere reserve, I think, as a vision.
So yeah, Harun also pointed out that what about assessing damage of Ulog once it starts running? It's going to be environmental disaster, and this needs to be showcased. And I think that we completely agree. We cannot run Science Week every year there, basically. So, but our idea is still to continue somehow with our presence there and not to stop, you know. So.
That's in general a weakness of nature conservation. We have to focus on defending rivers, and once it is destroyed, we have very little capacities to follow then, you know, what has been damaged. That's a more scientific approach, and people, they need to get paid for that, for assessing the disaster.
And so Katarina asked if we can explain a little bit about how we choose the research area and if it requires any permits, cooperation from the local government.
You can do that, Spela or Gabriel.
Yeah, I think how we choose the place now, like this is always a difficult decision, but I think I give a similar answer as I said before. The trick is to understand these Science Weeks as one tool in a toolbox of many approaches. And we're trying to basically find the place where a Science Week can contribute most efficiently to protection of the place. So if you already have 10 construction sites for hydropower plants in operation, you need a gang of people that's ready to occupy these construction sites. That's typically not a job of scientists. So we need to be a little earlier, right? Second, in my opinion, the Science Weeks are somewhat big actions, right? They're big, and they're also long-term actions. No, we work about a year or a year and a half from the start of organizing, bringing all those colleagues to a place, to actually publishing a final report. So we also need a bit of time ahead, right? So take this all together. It means we need to be relatively early in this like development of a threat for a specific river. And the size of the action, in my opinion, also argues for a place that's large enough, right? It's not like a single power plant on a tributary on some river somewhere. This needs to be a place where you can save a whole river network, where we're talking about the length continuum of a river for, let's say, 100 kilometers, where it's worth to actually invest this effort. So the Vjosa has been a blueprint for this, because it's now hopefully becoming finally a national park at a scale that is unprecedented in Europe. No? This is a big thing, and this is where I think the Science Weeks can actually contribute the most. The Neretva was our second choice, because it's the second probably most important and most threatened river in the Balkan countries. And there's probably a few more where we can still go. I think this is maybe explaining best and like how to choose a place.
And the permits?
Well, you need
the permit was part of the question.
sampling, for sure, but we apply for the
we need permits
every
for
year.
sampling.
Yeah.
We get the permits from the national, from the local, from whatever institution you can think about what could be necessary. Many of us, in fact, rely on molecular biological work to identify species, and this needs extra permits. There's international laws that control this, and we take care of this.
There is also a question from Thomas. So first, maybe I can say that all the questions that were answered through chat, I just dismissed. So I have a little bit of overview. So don't think that your question was dismissed. It was put in another basket. So Thomas is asking, can you give us an overview about the idea and planned organization for multiplicatory experienced scientists who should lead young scientists at different Balkan River systems? Thomas, I have no... Gabriel is... Okay, Gabriel knows what you're
I
asking.
have a bit of an answer on this, no? So this idea of like more experienced people leading the less experienced one, no? In part, we envisioned this scientists for Balkan rivers to be exactly for this, no? This is the networking component, and this is what I mentioned as capacity building. Talk to each other, get to know each other. So if you're a young colleague, identify the more experienced ones that fit your interests, that may fit your expertise, connect to them and say, hey, I want to do a work on butterflies on River X, no? And maybe this works out, and this person is ready to supervise your work, for instance. I'm happy to supervise, maybe not work on butterflies, but you can connect to us and say, I would like to work on butterflies. Can you tell me a colleague that is maybe ready to help? So this is one way, no? And another way is an idea that we have been toggling around in the past quite a lot, and that so far we haven't really, it's a bit of a hot potato. We haven't really picked up. And this is the idea of actually making something like a network project. There's a few people of us that have experience in this, where relatively simple questions on a very specific subject are targeted and collected data for at various places simultaneously. This means inexperienced people collecting data maybe on 20 different rivers. And for this, we also search for host labs or more experienced seniors that would be ready to support a place like this. This is a very different type of actions, but it's something that we envision for the future maybe. It's not a science week on a very particular river. It's more a network project on many rivers at once. It could be a very different tool. It's not something that we currently run, but it's something that we could envision to actually do in the future.
Okay, I think we went through a lot of questions. I would maybe just finish with presentation, just few more things before everybody disappears, and we can continue discussion if there are more questions, if this is okay. Because I feel really, well, I need to mention, so I hope you see it. You see Josh in his action?
In his natural environment.
Yes, so I need to mention all the photographers and videographers that contributed the material to this presentation. Thank you, really. I know that I didn't put names on each slide separately, but without you, we wouldn't be able to share the story. And also, and I kind of like this slide, I really want to thank everyone who was there, and who was writing and who was participating in any way possible. And I know that I missed few names for sure, so I will switch on before you find or don't find yourself on this list, because I want to again mention that if you are not already part of Scientists for Balkan Rivers, fill in the form. It's basically a Google form from which we get your email and then send you newsletters and informations, and we can contact and talk with each other. Or just email us on scientists.balkanrivers.net. Contact is also in the chat. And maybe just heads up, as I'm starting with new job, basically the after tomorrow or when, Marie-Sophie will take over the coordination of the network. So if you see new name in emails, you know that this is her, and she will take care that Scientists for Balkan Rivers will stay alive and that we will do many successful Science Week in the future. And now I think I've told you everything that needs to be taught, and we can go back to questions or discussions.
I don't know if there's many questions left.
No, there are no questions, but were many really interesting discussions and chats. So I think that I will somehow just wrap all the info that we got and share it among participants on this webinar, because I think that we really, well, there was some lively discussion and we could all benefit from it. So expect email from the Eventbrite page that will follow in next days.
Yeah, and join, you said that, join us, or if you are interested in what we're doing beside the Science Week, I think we have to develop some more tools. We're thinking also how to improve our work as scientists or within the Blue Heart campaign. Register, no? And that's one thing. And last not least, Spela, because it's your last day or something, we should drink something here officially.
I will open a beer.
or I don't know, Slivo or Kenya, Raki, or yeah, I don't know.
It's Tuesday, you know. It's not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good start, but it's Tuesday already. No,
So maybe I can just say Ivana reminded me that we should all say thank you to everyone, not just people, but also to Center for Environment from Bosnia, especially because this is about Neretva, and all the other organizations that help us on our way. So thank you again to everyone.
Yeah, but let me say that thank you to you, Spela, especially. You were like the heart of this for a year or more, a little bit, and it's a bit sad for me that you're leaving. But you know, I understand you're doing the next step. But I'm also sure you stay a little bit with us.
Definitely. You will not get rid of me. I still need papers for Natura Slovenia 2024. So
yeah,
you will not hear from me.
Find the heart and the brain, then you're chained actually. Then to us. No, thank you again. Thanks everyone. I think we can close the session, or is there anything else? Spela, no more questions coming in.
No, I think that it was a great webinar, and I hope I will see you on next Science Week or somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And thanks also to Ivana from Riverwatch, my colleague, who is helpful in presenting and preparing this webinar for all of us. Yeah. We should have drunk something in the end. We didn't think about it. That's usually Balkan habit, Balkan style.
Fair enough. Thanks everyone for showing interest in what we do.